Hey friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Above Board podcast. Today we have a special guest with us. David Hill is a seasoned real estate broker with over 21 years of experience in the industry and 36 years of experience as a top sales coach and trainer. He also hosts the Path to Sales Mastery podcast and has interviewed notable figures like Gary Vaynerchuk, Mel Robbins, and Grant Cardone. He's an accomplished author of the Sales Playbook, which we're going to talk throughout today's podcast about. And above all else, David is committed to personal mastery and along his own journey to seeking self-improvement, aims to inspire millions to lead more fulfilled lives. David, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you on. I got to be, first of all, the lineup of podcast guests you've had. I feel like very fortunate that I got to be on your podcast recently. That's quite the list of notable figures.
Well, yeah, thank you, man. Same strategies that I teach business owners to connect with that ideal customer, that dream customer, is the same strategies I use to get all those people on my podcast.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I think the first one that I listened to was Gary Brecka.
Yeah,
who I like.
Is awesome.
I mean, I've followed him for a while, and so
great guy, by the way.
Oh yeah,
got to spend some time with him in Las Vegas, and just a really, really good guy.
Well, the conversation was good, and I think that kind of highlights, like just to talk about your podcast for a moment. I think it kind of highlights your show in that. Like it has sales in it. It's about sales, but I think there's a lot more than just sales. It's mindset stuff. It's even nutritional and health stuff, like with Gary Brecka. So like in the spirit of that, maybe just talk to me about, I don't know, man, I have like a big list of topics to chat with you today, but I want to go with, what is David Hill thinking about? This podcast is going to go in January. So like, what is David Hill thinking about as he starts his new year? Do you still do New Year's resolutions? Like what do goals look like for you in 2025?
Man, just excited for 2025. I think a lot of changes coming with a new president, just a lot going on, right? I don't want to get into politics, but a lot of changes. Excited, man. With our business, I own a real estate brokerage that we're bringing on agents and people, just a lot of enthusiasm. I think interest rates, coming down a little bit. So yeah, I think really excited about that. As people get more, comfortable and then they're financially in better shape, then they tend to want to hire, people like me to come in and work with their business. It's kind of ironic too, John, is when the first thing that people let go when times get a little tough the training and the coaching and the things that keep them going. But I don't know, back to your question, though, every year I usually create a word for the year. Last year it was focus. So I literally spent all of 2024 on just being more focused, and just that was my intention for the year. So I honestly haven't really thought about my intention for 2025 yet, which is, so that's a great question. I think I've got to spend some time on that now.
Man, you can't know how timely that is, because on our podcast, we just recorded, in recapping 2024, we started the year out with a word of the year.
Oh.
And mine was gain, which I know at face value, you're probably thinking like, oh, financial gain, whatever. It was more on the heels of reading this book called The Gap and the Gain by Dan Sullivan. Yeah. So it was this idea of like, okay, I want to stay in the gain. I don't want to focus on my shortcomings. I don't want to focus on all these, these imaginary benchmarks I'm making for myself. Not that I'm not working towards things, but I want to appreciate what I've accomplished and kind of be more gain focused. And so that was my word of the year. And we were talking about last month, we were talking about what our word of the year is going to be for 2025. What I came up with, it sort of like came up organically on the podcast, but consistency for me. I think I just consistency. Like it's, we started this podcast with you today talking about all these guests you've had. And I think it's a testament to consistency. You're over 400 plus episodes now.
Yeah, I think 430 something. We just had one released yesterday. So yeah, man, it's like you said, just consistency. Just keep showing up week after week. And I enjoy doing it. Obviously I enjoy it. So that makes it a lot easier. And I don't know if you followed it, but most podcasts, like I think it's I don't know the exact, it's a high percentage don't make it past 10 episodes, like a really, really high percentage. Like I believe it's like 80%.
I think you're right.
So yeah, it takes absolute consistency. I love that word, consistency. I'm probably like one of the most consistent people in the world, and sometimes to my detriment, because I'll stay consistent on maybe something I shouldn't even be doing anymore, right? Which is why I really had to spend my time on focus last year and figure out in that the book, The Gap and the Gain, is absolutely an essential read when it comes to focus and inconsistency and everything. And actually I had Dr. Benjamin Hardy was on my podcast too. Another
way.
Great guy. Yeah.
He's an Orlando guy. He lives near me. That's amazing. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I was with Genius Network for a year, and he's one of the members of Genius Network as well. So, yeah, really great guy too. It wasn't for that book. It was for his other book. I can't think of the name of it right now. It's up here somewhere on my bookshelf. But the yellow book. Oh, Who Not How. This one. Right here. Another really phenomenal book. As a matter of fact, I mean, this book, that's a must read too. So many good books, man. But you know what I'm thinking is I'm behind right now. You just reminded me of how far behind I am, that I don't know my word for 2025 yet. So I need to spend some time on that this weekend.
Well, it's okay. I mean, we're recording this in December, so you still have time. But by the time the audience hears this, it'll be January. So we'll plug in maybe in the description of the podcast what your word of the year is. You can email me after. I like that, the idea of consistency and focus though. I mean, looking at it from the lens of like your career, whether it's
I'm just trying to shut off my notifications here. That's why I was looking at my phone.
Oh, please don't worry about it. Most of our listeners don't even see it. We are on YouTube too, but most people wouldn't even notice it. But I think whether it's consistency in showing up in the podcast or showing up for your coaching community or showing up for your real estate clients, I mean, that a lot of times, like I hate the phrase that showing up is half the battle. I hate that phrase, but like it's kind of true. I mean, it really is.
Why do you hate it, man? What do you mean?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, sometimes those like platitudes or those phrases, I don't love them. But when I think about that one a lot, and I think about the word consistency, it really is true, man. I mean, just literally being present. I've talked about this a lot recently on the podcast. Matt, my business partner, who's a co-host with me, he and I joke that as long as you show up on time, run a comb through your hair, and you're ready to like attentively listen or just like have like an engaging conversation, man, you're like miles ahead of the rest of the competition,
Amen. Yeah, we have our, I coach a group of real estate agents. And so we meet for an hour on Tuesday and Thursday mornings. And we had a newer guy came into the community. And so we always start with wins. And so we, it's people share some wins, and then he shared, hey, I'm just getting, he said, I'm practicing, getting ready to make calls. And I says, oh, wow, getting ready, like, what does that look like? And he's like, well, I'm watching videos. And I said, you want me to show you what getting ready to make calls looks like? And he said, yeah. So I literally opened up my dialer and started dialing people live. I'm like, that's what getting ready to make calls looks like, not practicing. Watching
pumping yourself up, watching a motivational video.
Make the calls, right? Like this guy. And the reason I said that is because last week I had talked to him, and it was very similar. Oh yeah, I'm just watching the videos, getting ready. Some people just they just continue getting ready to get ready, right? And they never actually end up taking any action, right? And showing up, like you said, first step, showing up. Well, there's different ways of showing up.
Yeah, I think that's what sucks about some of this is because fear is the word that comes up for me for that individual. Not that he's totally afraid of making these phone calls, but it is a little uncomfortable, or there's something there that's blocking that person, and it's that wall of fear. And like you said, I mean, consistency is just being able to find your way to the other side of that. And I don't know a better way to do it, like priming yourself for it or whatever, I guess. But I mean, to your point, it's like, just do the thing. Like, just do the hard thing. I use this book. I've been using it for years. It's called the Full Focus Planner. And for those watching, I'm holding it up here. But
what is it? Let me write this down.
It's called it's the Full Focus Planner. Yep, FULL. And it's a daily planner. You subscribe to it. They send you one. It lasts for a quarter. So it's like a 90-day planner, and then they send you a new one in the mail when, right before the next 90 days starts. And it's by Michael Hyatt.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard of him, and so what I love about it, one of the things I really enjoy is that it requires you to write down the 3 big things that you want to accomplish in the day. Yeah. And I try to make those very intentional, not like checklist item things, but like hard things that I know are a little uncomfortable. And then I just try to do those first thing in the morning. So like to that point of like, let me show you what it looks like. Just pick up the phone and dial. It's a little bit of the same for me. It's like, let's like the night before, I guess that's my priming, is the night before I write down like, what are these going to be? And I just go to tackle it first thing in the morning, which is easier said than done. But I think it's an important exercise, don't you?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, which is why I did that just this morning. And, the lady, I called somebody, they answered the phone. Oh, yeah, you got the wrong number. That's not my house. And okay, cool. Hey, awesome. Do you know anybody else? No. Great. Have a great holiday, right? Like, that was it. It's like, I just connected with another human being.
Yeah.
Right. At the end of the day, here's what, if you're confident in what you're doing in your business and your business is helping people, you're not going to have an issue reaching out to people. That's what I believe. And we talk about that in this book here, the Sales Playbook, about, a lot of people just are to me, it's about, okay, the reason I'm calling certain people or I'm reaching out or whatever I'm doing, sending stuff, is because I know what I do is actually going to bring value to them. It's going to help them. I'm so clear and certain in that I'm okay if they don't want to, if they reject my offer, hey, that's okay. Mm-hmm. That's not on me. That's on them. Right. And so now I'm going to go find someone else that's looking for it. And I think, that's a level of confidence that I think anybody can get to. But, number one is instead of worried about fear, as you said earlier, fear of rejection, right? Fear of failure, whatever it is, just focus on, hey, you know what? I'm just trying to help people. Like I sincerely want to help people solve problems. And then it makes it a lot easier when someone's like, yeah, no, I'm not interested. Okay, cool.
So David, how do you, cause like, as I've gotten to know you, I can tell that you have, you certainly have a confidence about you. And something else that I think I know about you, but I can't say this for certain, but it just seems like you have a really tough skin. Like if you, like the example you just made, you make a phone call, someone says, hey, I'm not interested. Hey, wrong phone number. Hey, but like you have a tough enough skin to move on and almost like a short-term memory in that way to go like, whatever, I'll go on to the next. Yeah. So do you talk about this in the book, or maybe for the listeners hearing us today, what would you say to that? For the folks listening to this going like, well, that sounds great, John and David, like just do the hard thing. But,
yeah.
Maybe that's learning in 2025 to like develop that tougher skin. What would you say to speak to that a little bit? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it comes down to your word, consistency, right? Mm-hmm. So when you just can consistently, if like for me, I wake up at the same time it sounds super boring. Like wake up at the same time, have the same breakfast, go to the gym, work out, in my office by 8:30. But that routine creates a lot of consistency, which then helps me get into all the other on a daily basis, which then just makes it easier for me. And the reason I bring that up is because I've dealt with so much, as you mentioned in the beginning, 36 years sales experience. I started on the phones at 17 years old working with Kirby. Remember I don't know if you're familiar with the Kirby vacuum cleaner, but that's where I started, in the call center, and they gave me a phone and a script, and I said, call these people. So yeah, I've been doing it a while, so I guess I've built that. So maybe that's an advantage I have that not everybody has, but I still don't think everybody needs to go through all of that. I feel like if you can just figure out like what value you're bringing to the world and what value you bring to somebody. And if you can just get so sold on yourself and so confident on the value you bring, then it will help you remove any of that. Oh God, they just hung up on me. My life sucks. No, it's just like, hey, it's good because I can get better at my craft, and then I can just find someone else, whether it's on the phones or you're at a networking meeting, whatever it is. To me, I think just doing it, John, the more we do something, we just, I guess, develop tougher skin, as you said. I don't know. It's the best way I can describe it.
I think it's important to hear you say that. We have a business coach as well. He works with financial planners, and early on, shout out to David DeSell. He's been on the podcast before, but early on, David said to my business partner and I, you have an obligation to share with people what you do and what you know. And I thought, okay, because it was. I think he was speaking to some of our fears of like, oh, I don't want to put myself out there. If someone wants to reach out to us, they'll reach out to us, and it's uncomfortable, right? It's uncomfortable to pick up the phone and call people and solicit, or not even solicit, but just like put yourself out there, or on social media. You know, we do videos and podcasts, all that stuff. And he said, no, listen, guys, like, it's your responsibility, because if you don't do that, what if that person that could have and should have heard about you through social media or through a friend or whatever never did, and instead went to someone down the street who has a bunch of regulatory issues on their licensing and isn't a good financial, isn't an ethical person in the financial industry, and then they get sold crap investment products? You have an ethical responsibility to make sure that doesn't happen. And I was like, when he said that, I'm like, whoa, man, I want to run through a wall right now for that, because I had never thought of it that way before. It really unlocked something in my brain to, I think, give us the confidence to what you said about, like, if you have enough conviction about the thing you do, you don't feel that bad if someone says no, because you're just trying to provide good help for somebody. And then, what you ended with, which is consistency. I mean, that part is so true. I liken it to, I mean, this is silly, but a gym analogy. It's like you once you keep going to the gym and you go again and again and again, like you develop calluses on your hands. They're not blistered anymore. Like you kind of develop that. And I think when you do enough of these calls, or not even replace calls with whatever the thing is that's uncomfortable for you, that personal development will result in. That's the thing I think that we're talking about for our listeners today. But okay, so David, we've talked a little bit about the book. So just chat with me a little bit about the Sales Playbook, and maybe 2 or 3 key takeaways, without giving the whole book away, because I want listeners to go buy it. But give us a couple takeaways.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing I learned over the years is, although I'm good at having conversations, and I've gotten better at listening to people and asking questions, and I think a lot of that came from the podcast. And I was also trained as a coach for about 8 years, which helps, because as a coach, you use coaching in your sales process too, right? But I would say follow-up, man, is the key. 80% of the business I've always done has come as a result of just follow-up. And follow-up is just having a good system in place, really, like systematize. I don't rely on me remembering things. I just use a good CRM. I use automations. I use email sequences. Right now we're doing a ton with AI, which is super exciting. We're building agents and chatbots and things like so. To me, if someone said, well, what's your magic secret? I would say follow up. I just landed. I was talking. My wife and I. Again, we own a real estate brokerage, and we just landed a community. It's a retirement assisted living community. They have, bless you, they have hundreds of units, and it's a huge opportunity, because people go in there. They buy in. We're the agent, and then also they have homes to sell. So usually when someone's going there, they need someone to sell the house. So either we can sell it or we can refer it out to someone else. And people are reaching out, oh my gosh, how did you do that? And I've been working on that for 15 years. Mm-hmm. I'm not exaggerating. I started talking to them. We were thinking about it the other day, 15 years ago. Like, I would talk to the executive director. He wanted nothing to do with me, right? Oh yeah, we already got someone. Cool. I kept following up, sending him information. I got nowhere. I just kept, for 10 years, 12 years, 13 years. All of a sudden, 13 years, he's gone. I don't know if he retired. He's gone, and a new guy comes in. So now all of a sudden the door's open, right? So I start in dialogue with the new guy 2 years ago, and here we go. Finally, it panned out. So I really just encourage people to, think of everything that you're doing in your sales processes. It's just a long term. It's just a process. I think sometimes what we do is we tend to, people get a no and then, and that's it. And they just give up and move on. Where for me, it's like, okay, just no, not right now. Okay, great. I haven't provided enough value yet, right? They don't need me right now, maybe in the future. So I just really never close the door. And I think we talk a lot about that in the book as well. We have a whole chapter on just different follow-up strategies and ways to stay in touch with people and provide value and social media and a lot more with social media now, things we're doing. And yeah, I just think follow-up, man. If that's my superpower, I would say follow-up. Same thing I said earlier, how I get those people on my podcast. Like someday, if you listen to the Gary V episode, you'll hear how I got Gary on the podcast, and it was 18 months of follow-up.
Yeah.
Until he finally said yes.
I love, like we started this talking about word of the year, and a lot. I think what's kind of woven throughout this entire conversation is the power of consistency. And then even just hearing you describe one of the key takeaways of the Sales Playbook is following up, which like all I'm going back to in my brain is consistency. Like David just shows up again. He keeps staying present and following up with people. And so, man, I love that's the takeaway from the book that you wanted to reference today, because it's just so in line with consistency.
There's that, and then there's a chapter, I believe it's chapter 3, which is on call reluctance. Which is what we were talking about earlier, and if it's called lifting the 800-pound phone, and it's, and the phone is a metaphor. You could be at a networking event and just to get out of your seat and go start talking to people, right? Instead of just sitting there by yourself, or it could be sending that email or sending that DM through social media, whatever it is, it's a metaphor, right? But yeah, I mean, so many of us, we get in our own way. We're either living in the fear of rejection or we're in that paralysis by analysis mindset. And then you can really go deep on fear of success, what that means, the people, success is tough, right? So that's another big part of the book.
We talked about that a little bit on the episode that I did with you. I referenced one of your other podcasts where you discuss setting your internal thermostat, and it was relating to sales, but I think that relates to life a lot, where people tend to self-sabotage their own success too. Like, you start having a lot of good momentum and a lot of good success, and so correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe I'd like to hear you maybe explain it probably better than I can, but you've got kind of this internal thermostat that's set, and so you do things to elevate that thermostat. You're kind of working a little bit harder, you're doing those calls, you're reaching out to people, doing whatever, and you're having a lot of great momentum. And then in my mind, you kind of look at that and you go, oh, I've had a really good week, like I'm gonna take next week a little bit easier. I'm gonna have some cocktails tonight, I'm gonna have some cocktails tomorrow, I'm gonna and then you just do these things to self-sabotage your success and then get back to your internal thermostat. Am I thinking of that correctly, or did I butcher that?
I think you did a great job with it. I think it's, what happens is the thermostat, a thermostat is all about comfortability, right? At the end of the day, like, what does a thermostat do? It regulates the temperature. So if it gets too hot, it'll bring you down a little bit, get you comfortable. If it gets too cold, what does it do? It brings you up a little bit, gets you comfortable. So what happens is we start doing all this stuff that we're not accustomed to doing, and then we're getting really, really uncomfortable. And sometimes we're even getting results, but we're so uncomfortable we don't know what to do. So we unconsciously let our thermostat kick in, and then it does things like you just talked about. Self-sabotage. Maybe we flip out on a customer, right, because we're stressed. Or maybe we decide, hey, I'm going to take the afternoon off and go play golf and miss out on an opportunity, forget to make a call, or go have a few drinks, whatever it is. Like, those are the things, like our internal unconscious thermostats kicking in, and we don't even realize it. And so what we need to do is expand that, which is the next thing we talk about, is the rubber band, right? The rubber band will expand. At some point it will break, but if you expand it slowly, right, it doesn't go all the way back to where it was. It's still expanded a little bit. Do you know what I'm saying? And then at some point you may need to get a bigger rubber band, but you've just expanded the rubber band that was maybe 6 inches. Now all of a sudden it extends to 9 inches without expanding.
Yeah.
So I think, that's a big part of it as well. Just being willing to do things that make you uncomfortable. And most people, they don't want to be uncomfortable. Most people don't want to be uncomfortable, man. I deal with this all the time, brother. I hire real estate agents, and I just now, I'll just like, hey, do this. So I've gotten smarter as I've gotten older. I'd be like, I'll give them an assignment to do something pretty basic, but they have to do it in order to even get to the next level with me. And most of them just don't do it. And then I don't follow up with them anymore. I used to chase them down, and because I know if they won't take the initiative to do this one thing, I'll be like, hey, you know what? I want you to write down your 5 goals for 2025 and send them to me. Like this guy a couple weeks ago, he hasn't sent me anything. And then he texts me, hey, I'm just wondering, are we going to meet again? I said, okay, great. Where's your goals? Oh, I haven't had time to do that. So I haven't responded. I did not respond intentionally. Have not responded to see how he responds. He hasn't said anything else. So that tells me that's exactly how he's going to operate if I bring him into my company.
I would imagine that that's a pretty good litmus test for someone's ability to be successful in the long run. Not how much do they know in the industry, how smart is this person, but these little tests to determine, are they willing to get a little uncomfortable? Right? I mean, I think it's a good litmus test to determine if someone is going to be a good fit for your company or whatever. Like have them do a task that's a little uncomfortable. Like what you just described wasn't even that hard. It was write down your 5 goals. But I know, like I have certain clients I work with, and we talk about obviously money all the time. That's what I do. But sometimes I have these very EQ conversations about money and feelings and how they want to see their life. And then I have other clients where they're like, all I want to know is like the performance numbers, the data, the allocations. Sure. Don't talk to me about my feelings. And so for that personality, if I said, write down 5 goals, they'd be like, they would just stare blank at me. So an exercise that seems easier for you and me is probably not as easy for everybody. Yeah. And I think that's a really good measure of someone's ability to be successful long term, is just their willingness to get uncomfortable.
Well, so we had this. So this particular situation, we had this conversation before, and he may end up even listening to this episode. And he's a great guy. So, but let's
send it to him as his call to action. Let's send it to him.
We had the conversation, and he said, and I says, have you done that before? He says, no, I've never done it. I said, okay. So you got 2 weeks. I'm going to Florida. I've got some. So can you find somebody that's going to help you do that? And or if you can't find somebody, what I want you to do is I want you to reach out to me and I will help you. Mm-hmm. So he didn't do either of them. You know what I mean? So I mean, what do you want me to do? I mean, do I really want to get into business? Or so I in the past I used to chase people around, man, and oh my God, join us, come to our meeting. Like we do a networking meeting. It's called Master Networks, and we have a group of about 20 local business owners. It's great. Similar to BNI. I don't know if you know what BNI is.
Sure.
Yeah. Similar. I used to start BNIs years ago. I was president of a couple of chapters. We started chapters. I love networking. Like besides the phone, that's the other thing I really enjoy, going out, just meeting people, talking to people. But anyway, I used to like chase people, John, to come to my BNI. And then I as I got older, I got smarter, and I said, well, geez, if I have to chase them to show up, that means I'm going to have to chase them every week to continue to show up. So now I just invite people. I give a good invitation. Just, hey, come check out our group. Oh, tell me, 20 business owners. Just come check it out. See if you like it. If you like it, I'll give you more information. That's it. If they show up, great. If they don't show up, no problem. I'm on to the next.
Yeah. Oh, I think that comes with experience from you too, of so many years of chasing people down, and you're really just doing the same thing endlessly without good results. So you had to adjust. Yeah. Which again, like consistency shows up in that. You continue to be consistent and found a way to refine it. I mean, I don't know. I love, somewhere in the title of this entire podcast is going to be the word consistency, yeah. I think.
Well, it's interesting how that's so different though than my sales process, because my sales process, there's more of an intention. Like I want to actually help you with something. Mm-hmm. And I know the group can help somebody, but I can't chase somebody every week, right?
Yeah.
Like I was mentored by Gary Keller, and Gary Keller says, hey, he's the founder of Keller Williams Realty. So I got to spend about 4 years with him in a small group of people that we mentored. And he always said, hey, I will help anybody up the hill, but I will not carry them up the hill.
Mm-hmm.
And I always found that really, really interesting. You know, like, yeah, I'm here to help you. I'll guide you. I'll even nudge you a little bit, but I'm not gonna carry you up the hill.
I think those are good lessons in leadership that you had early on, because that's something for me that we've got a great team here at Canterpath, but I noticed for my own self, like, I don't know if you do the Enneagram stuff. Like, I don't know if you're into that at all, or you know what that is.
Is it like the disc and all that? Or
It's kind of like a personality assessment, but
sure.
we've leaned in heavily as a team because it helps us kind of understand how we work together.
Sure.
And so I'm a type 3. So to fast track that, it's called the achiever. And something about a type 3 is when they're in a place of like when they're negative or like that they're in an unhealthy space, they just like to do things themselves. Like they just like, let me just shut it down. I'll do it all myself. And that tends to be my personality. And so I've had to like fight against that, because there are so many times where I'm like, I got it, don't worry about it. Or like someone will come to me with something. I'm like, I'll just do it, don't worry about it. And I found myself thinking like, what am I doing? This is not the role of a good leader, that I'm like, I'll just do it. And so I've had to like work on that consciously. And I mean, listen, man, I'm 37 and I'm learning that. So it's really cool that you really have been learning this stuff since the beginning through Gary Keller, who I've read a lot of his books too. I mean, he's an incredible mentor and leader. Yeah. So that's cool, man. Well, David, as we're wrapping up, man, it's just awesome chatting with you again. So number one, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I want to have you on my podcast again. I think we can do this a couple times. I think it'll be fun, man.
I'd love that. I mean, selfishly, it's one of the reasons I love doing our show, because I get to learn new things from experts in their field like you. So thanks for hanging with us. Before we let you go, obviously go get the book, The Sales Playbook, but how can listeners find you?
So the easiest way to find me, just go to davidhill.ai. All my links are there. My socials are there. You can get my book for free. As a matter of fact, right now, you can download it. There's a link on there. You can get a virtual, not a virtual, what am I talking about?
Like a PDF copy, like an e-copy?
Actually, it's not even, it's a real ebook. You can download it and it opens up in an e-reader.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's actually really, really cool. Because right now, this is not even, I mean, you can find it on Amazon, but mostly just people that are selling their copies. We're in the process now of doing a rewrite, and we're adding some new technology stuff to it. So you're going to have a 2.0 coming out soon. So I'll make sure once that's ready, I want to get back on your show and have you back on my show, and we'll talk about all the things that we're incorporating now with AI. It's like next level stuff, man.
I love that. I had that as notes to ask you, so we didn't even get into that. So we'll save that for a part 2, because I'm so curious how you think AI is going to be changing things in 2025.
But fundamentally, it's a great book, and you can get a copy. Just go to davidhill.ai, and all of my stuff's there. I'd love to connect with you.
Perfect. We'll put a link in the show notes too. David, you're the man. You're the man. I really appreciate you coming on the show. As always, thank you all for listening to the Above Board podcast. We love these conversations. We love our listeners. If you prefer to watch these conversations instead of just listening to them, head over to our YouTube channel and subscribe to our podcast. You can find us at Canterpath, or search the Above Board podcast on YouTube. Thank you for listening to our show today, and we look forward to seeing you next week. See ya.